Jeden svět. Mezinárodní filmový festival o lidských právech 2025. 12. března až 27. dubna po celém Česku. www.jedensvět.cz. Pořádá Člověk v tísni.
Dobrý večer.
Good evening. Welcome here at the Prague Crossroads. This is the 27th year of the Human Rights Festival One World. Now, I'm happy I can be here with you. I'm Linda Bartosheva. I'll be your host tonight. You could see a picture when you were coming here, and we express solidarity with the Georgian journalist Mzia Baglobeli, who is held captive in a Georgian prison, and also to express solidarity with the Georgian people. For 100 days they have been fighting non-democratic changes introduced in their country. The One World Festival points out injustice all over the world and fights for freedom. Georgia is now waging this battle. So now some housekeeping information. The ceremony will be in Czech and English, and it will be interpreted into these languages. Channel 1, if you have headsets, it's Czech, 2 is English. Also, the ceremony will be translated by excellent interpreters into Czech Sign Language, and it will also be transcribed. That's for the online viewers on .set. And if you follow us on social networks, hello to you as well. Every year, an important person introduces the festival, a public person, so it's a great honor, and it's not a cliché, to welcome the woman who demonstrated to Czechs and to the entire Europe that the ruthless world of politics can be handled with a human face, and that it always matters to have individual stories. The ex-Slovak president, Zuzana Čaputová. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I was happy to accept the invitation to this evening because we are going to present the Homo Homini Awards, and also I really respect the work of the people in need organizations. The laureates show how far courage can reach, because each of us in our life test the bravery, the courage in various circumstances, and the laureates have also made changes. And they have tried to improve the world. In the world of democracy and freedom, they risk their lives, their freedom. So this is outside even the morals and aspirations, because this is something that we should approach, and that makes us to use the best capabilities and capacities of men. And these laureates are an example of such aspirations. They have been doing more than they could, but they just had to. They know they must, because responsibility, that's not the boundaries of their bodies or their families. They have demonstrated they can see the much broader responsibility for human rights, which have been tested by evolution. So these award winners touch suffering. They want to protect the victims of suffering and to avoid and prevent suffering. Exposed to their vulnerability and to fear, they overcome all this by their courage. So I would like to praise the organizers of this event from people in need. And many of the words I have addressed to the laureates belong to them as well. Your effort to save people, your effort to fight for humanism are really priceless because you help others and you can see the damages done to the world. I will never forget how I visited Ukraine several times during the war. I will never forget the people I could meet in Ukraine. They bear the pain and the loss. And when I listen to all the absurd things about the war from individuals and even from political leaders, I think of the pain I could see in Ukraine. And of course, the biggest untruths are spread by those who have never seen war and its consequences, and they are just satisfied with second-hand information or second-hand information. So it's a terrible tragedy if you lose your dear ones. But if there are lies about the situation where these people live, it is violence in a way. Also, when you really turn history upside down. So to bear pain is a destiny, but to doubt about someone's pain, it's adding another burden. So we must thank all of you who save people, protect them, and who also record their suffering in many regions of the world, because out of the many qualities of humans like egoism and others, you have chosen the right values. When I remember your bravery, I think of the bravery of my fellow countrymen, Catholic dissidents, Sylvester Kitchmery and Vladimir Yukel. The communist regime in Czechoslovakia held them captive in prison, tortured them. But they kept saying that inside, in their minds and hearts, they remained free. So the communists could break their bodies, but could not take away their freedom. Kitchmery, Yukel, and others in 1989 helped to bring freedom and democracy again. So the message is clear. A free society can be built only by those who are free in their minds, because this is not an abstract entity. This freedom cannot be separated from the quality of people who form freedom. You cannot order freedom, and if it comes from the outside, it will never endure. Freedom is not neutral in terms of value. It has to be built on values, otherwise it can turn into a destructive force. Many people forget that freedom does not only mean the freedom to choose, but also the freedom to give up things, to give them up for the good of a bigger entity, so that we can do something, we can act, so that freedom can be here for others as well. And you, the award winners, have given up safety and comfort and sometimes even personal freedom. And many of you have paid by lives so that others could live in freedom. Freedom is not a ticket to a world without problems. There will always be disillusion. It's also a part of the truth. But it must not be the reason that freedom would be dissolved in some false illusion of safety to the detriment of democracy or enforcing human rights. Sylvester Kitchmery, I mentioned, said when he was brought to court, "You have the power, but we have the truth." Because truth cannot be killed by water cannons, it cannot be imprisoned, it cannot be deterred or bribed. truth remains a bribe, no matter what sort of government there is, a government that believes it really holds the right to truth. Ladies and gentlemen, the fight for human rights and defending human rights is a never-ending process, and we must never give up. And we'd like to thank the award winners and all of you here that you are showing the way by your examples. Thank you.
Děkujeme.
Zuzana Čaputová, thank you very much. One World, as already explained, is organized by people in need, and it's the organization that suffers a lot right now, similar to other organizations being in charge of human rights protection. And One World Festival won't exist without Šimon Pánek, CEO of People in Need. And I would like to welcome also Nadia Ivanova, the Director of Human Rights Departments of People in Need. Good evening. Please join me on the stage. Traditionally, I would like to ask you to stand in the middle of the light. You belong there, even though you don't feel like that. So Šimon, who will get the prize award tonight? Šimon, you can say everything about human rights, because I guess you have a lot of things to be said. Thank you very much. Well, Nadia will tell you who will won the award. That's how we just split our duties. I can just tell you one thing currently. Even though it looks like sometimes that we are ending up into information value and direction foggy space, not knowing who is doing what and so on. So it's not possible to surrender, and it is proven by the number of you present here in the hall and your energy. We are not alone. What is happening now, doubting clear things, it's nothing new. It's a kind of longer-term direction, creating foggy environment where you can't recognize where is the right direction, and it represents a great danger. I guess that we have to overcome harder times even here at home. The truth is that during the last year, the environment is not in favor of the values we stand for, then just fight with the globalization of the second wave. It's the mutual support of learning, and it's something like in the Lord of Rings. So, and if the evil is getting stronger, the others' evils are even stronger. And recently it is not really easy, and I really would like to thank you for coming. I guess it's clear what is ahead of us, a lot of hard work, and we believe that people in need is proving how we have to fight. We have to stand straight and fight hatred, disinformations and pressures. We have to be strong, because anything we just step aside, well, it may be the beginning of the surrender, and that's exactly what we should not do. We have heard the president, and her speech really encouraged me to succeed. And I have to say, at the end, something which is notoriously known. Together with Václav, we have just met several times here. So I'll start with a value which is the most important one, which is the fact that a hope is not a security that it will end up well, but the hope represents a hope that it will end up well. Thank you very much for coming again. Have a nice evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to introduce you Homo Homini Award. People in need had awarded the prize for 30th time since 1994. We have been recognizing individuals and groups who, despite pressure, persecution, and overwhelming power structure, have fought for human rights and democratic, just society in their countries and communities. Our mission, through educational crisis, financial, and advocacy support, is to balance this unequal battle. This year's award is somehow special. For the last decade, we, human rights defenders, advocates, have watched that injustices that go unpunished in one country spread further. Dictators with great geopolitical and global ambitions replicate their illegal and inhuman practices wherever they get a chance. The Russian Federation, led by Vladimir Putin's regime, first tortured, murdered, and committed war crimes against the Chechen people, then followed up with a crackdown on the dissent inside Russia, and then through the occupation of parts of Georgia and destruction of cities in Syria, it ensured that it can afford the occupation and war in Ukraine. The bloodiest conflicts in Europe for the last 8 years, which is being waged against the entire population of Ukraine and its right to decide on destiny. But this is only part of the misery that Russia is spreading around the whole world. The ambitions of the Russian regime extend far beyond the listed countries. It is financially, military supporting dictators all over the world, in Asia, Latin America, and not least in Africa, just where it has deployed units of paramilitary groups independent of each other for more than 10 years, but in fact they are following the orders of the regime and have blanked the check to torture and murder the local population in the name of Putin's economic and political interests. Today's laureates have never met although I can well imagine them taking part in the joint panel at the press conference to tell stories about how Russian troops treat civilians and activists. The journalists from Nigeria and the journalists from Ukraine were separated by thousands of miles as the crow flies, but we were brought together by a Russian expedition. The team of the Center for Human Rights and Democracy and the executive boards of People in Need are awarding 2 Homo Homini prizes, awards for the first and special time this year. Philip Obaji, a Nigerian journalist and activist, have been covering the crimes of Russian in West Africa for years. Thanks to his work, for which has been persecuted and tortured, the world knows about the crimes of Russian Wagner groups and its successes in the region. These mercenary bands operate on the basis of agreements with local authorities and their challengers, from whom they'll help them maintain power. Philip Obaji have won numerous awards for his work, including the Future Award Africa Prize for Young Person in the Year. Unfortunately, the relevance of his investigation is only growing. The Homo Homini Award is now awarded for his detailed mapping of human rights violation against defendants, citizens in the Wagner family and other paramilitary groups. We are delighted that Philip Obaji is with us today to receive his award in person. Philip, please join us on the stage, and I would like to ask Mrs. Chaputova to hand over the award again.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Paní Zuzana Čaputová předá.
Mrs. Chaputova will present the award for 2024 to Philip Obaji.
Much. I am very overwhelmed, and my visit to Czech Republic today has proven one thing, that God is with me. Many people who do what I do not live to see moments like this. Thank you very much, President Chaputova, for this kind gesture. Thank you very much, People in Need, for this very, very great honor. The work has not ended. This award is only an opportunity to do a lot more. I come from Africa. I have covered so many issues around Africa, from conflict to human rights abuses. I have covered conflicts in the Sahel, insurgency by Boko Haram, by the so-called Islamic State, and by groups linked to Al-Qaeda. But I haven't seen people beg so much for mercy. I haven't seen children watch as their parents are slaughtered by mercenaries that come from very far away, in the way I have seen in the Central African Republic and in Mali. And who are these mercenaries that come from Russia? We all have one duty to do. We all must come together, take our voices high, and ensure that these atrocities do not continue anymore. Many people are dying back at my continent. Wives have been slaughtered, separated from their husbands and slaughtered. And as long as I continue to live, I will do my job as a journalist, exposing these crimes and calling for the perpetrators of these crimes to be held accountable. But I thank you so much for this honor, and I will never forget this day, and I also will never stop doing what I know how to do best. Thank you. I love you all. Thank you.
If I can kindly ask you for a group photograph here. Paní Čaputová, jestli můžete ještě na fotografii, omlouvám se, vy jste mi utekla.
So the first laureate of Homo Homini for 2024, the Nigerian journalist and activist fighter for the rights of the exploited, Philip Obashe, Shimon Panek, Nadia Ivanova, Zuzana Čaputová, thank you all very much.
Together alone to není.
Together alone, it's not just a feeling and emotion, but also the title of this dance performance by Ukrainian Jana Roitova. It's about solitude, loss, and inner conflict between isolation and the wish to be with others, to be together. This is the experience of Ukrainian artists. It focuses on 5 dancers who had to abandon their homeland because of the war. Their stories are different, but they connect the suffering of all the refugees. Nadia Ivanova again. Nadia, you said that tonight, for the first time, we'll have 2 holders of the Homo Homini Award for last year. So is it because it's the human rights situation all over the world? Yes, of course. Unfortunately, there are more and more people we would like to award. Many activists have to really demonstrate courage and to fight the violation of human rights. The story of Victoria Roshchina is exceptional because it's so cruel. But it helps us understand the war of Ukraine and Russia. So, after this full-fledged war beginning, she had one goal.
Her first target was the besieged city of Mariupol, where hundreds of thousands of people were trapped and where Russia refused to allow humanitarian aid to enter. She never made it into the city. She was detained for 11 days in occupied Berdyansk and taken to Ukraine-controlled territory. A year later, Victoria again made a long journey across EU and Russia on Russian-occupied territory. According to the testimony of local residents, she was captured by the occupying forces in the occupied Zaporozhye region. As the customary in the case of civilian prisoners, the Russian regime refused for 9 months to confirm that Victoria was being held in Russian custody. Ukrainian journalists have discovered that she was meanwhile brutally tortured in captivity. At one point of time, she weighed less than 30 kilograms. In October 2024, Victoria's parents received a letter from the Russian Federation's Ministry of Defense informing them that their daughter had died. Russian Victoria had never released her body and provided other evidence of her death. Victoria Roshchina is being honored today for her courage to tell the stories of Ukrainians in the Russian-occupied territories and for her long-term journalistic work covering issues that threatened Ukraine democratic order, which she has shied away from despite the threats to her personal safety. It will be presented by the Ukrainian human rights activist journalists released from prisoners of war in October 2024. Please join us on the stage.
For the opportunity to be here. I was called human rights defender quite many times, and to me this is an honorable title which should be deserved and should be earned. And specifically because I felt myself being human rights defender on the 24th of February of 2022. I, being an anti-militarist in my worldview, despising violence and protesting war all my life, joined the armed forces of Ukraine. I dealt with assistance to refugees and asylum seekers from a number of countries, including Russia. I followed human rights situation in Russia, and I knew what happens to human rights in Ukraine if Russia takes over. There would be no human rights defense, no human rights activities, and no respect towards human rights. And all the achievements Ukrainian human rights movement made in previous years of struggle and advocacy and campaigning would be just erased. The only option to defend human rights we were left with as human rights defenders was to take up arms. And this is what we've done. and this is what I've done, and I still think this was the right choice. Unfortunately, I had to explore from inside to what extent my ideas about the Russian world and its disrespect towards human rights are true. I was captured in June 2022 by Russian forces, and for 2 years and 4 months of my captivity as prisoner of war, I could explore the Russian system, the Russian world from inside. I'm afraid the reality became even worse than I expected. Prisoners of war, but also civilian detainees, are tortured on a systemic level. Their conditions they are held in are appalling, and there are dozens, if not hundreds, of criminal cases fabricated against them. Absurd ones, but they are sentenced to long-term prison sentences. This also happened to me. I was sentenced on totally absurd charges to 13 years of strict regime penal colony in the best, actually the worst Stalinist traditions. This is what Russian world brings to Ukraine, but also further, because I was told so many times that Ukraine is just a stage, and that Russian army, after dealing with Ukraine, will be very ready to move forward, as they told me. This is what they bring not only to prisoners, this is what they bring to occupied territories and everyone who lives in there. The reign of terror, the reign of death, because the whole system they install is based upon fear and pain, which are manifestations of death. Death is something they manipulate with, something they try to dehumanize the new, what they think are subjects of Russian Federation, deprive them of their agency, of their freedoms of choice, of their liberties, of very notion of human rights. And this is done on a global scale. Russia currently intentionally and systematically undermines international humanitarian law, destroys what's remained of international and, in particular, European security system. We came across notions of human rights only when it was quoted in Constitution of Russian Federation, and every single prisoner just laughed about it. We came across notions of international humanitarian law only when they abused it to fabricate criminal cases and accuse Ukrainian prisoners of war in breaking Geneva Conventions, violating them. That was the only notion of Geneva Conventions we actually came across, because they were never upheld. They want to replace notions of civil liberties, human rights, and international law with the world where might makes right, and where the state is everything and human being is nothing. And I'm afraid I witnessed it from inside. This is why it is so important to do what they don't want us to do, to gather and spread information about what they do to prisoners of war, to civilian detainees, and to people who live in the occupied territories, who are effectively turned into hostages of Russian regime. They try to put obstacles in a way of gathering and spreading of this information and to repress those who dare to do that. Victoria Roshina was doing that. She is one of those brave, extremely brave persons who could do that, and this is why they've put her in captivity and treated her the way they've done. So I, not only as a human rights defender, not only as a former prisoner of war, not only as Ukrainian military, but as a human being, I pay her my deepest respect. And this is why I'm grateful to people in need for awarding her with Homo Homini of 2024. And I call upon everyone, please don't forget prisoners of war and civilian detainees, all those who are captured by Russian Mordor. and who are held as hostages in the occupied territories, because they are whom we are fighting for. Not only for our territory, and not for our territory in the first place, but for people who live in there, because we treasure them. We treasure human beings. And this is the main difference between us and those who try to eliminate us. Thank you very much. Glory to Ukraine. Slava Ukraini.
Cenu od Maxima Butkeviče.
So the award presented by Maxim Buktevich, it will be given to the editor-in-chief, Sevel Musajeva, editor-in-chief of Ukrainská pravda.
You can move to the center. Druhá laureátka ceny Homo.
So the second laureate of Homo Homini for 2024, Victoria Roshchina, cannot be with us. So Sevel Musajeva, another very brave woman, editor-in-chief of the Ukrainian newspaper Ukrainská pravda.
Thank you for recognition of Vika's important work, and thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of all Ukrainian journalists and also the family of Vika. As the chief editor of Ukrainská pravda, I want to say that Vika is the bravest journalist I've ever met in my entire career. She was 100% dedicated to her job. Nothing exists for her personally except journalism and except human stories. So many times I ask her why for her it's important to give a voice of people who are in occupied territories, why she's doing that risky job, and she all the time answered that she's the only one person who can do that. And this is truth. She was the only one Ukrainian journalist who covered occupied territories after the occupation of newly occupied territories, I mean Crimea and Mariupol and other places. This is hard, and this is very sad that we still don't know what actually happened to her. Just before this ceremony, I had a call with her dad, and I asked, what you expect? And he said that the only thing he expects, her daughter, to come back. Because the only letter we received, and no more, nothing. Russia still doesn't provide any information about Vikas, about where she is, and what happened actually. This is about a crime, and I also want to say that Vika, on her last trip, worked on the topic of captured Ukrainian citizens and violation of human rights in occupied territories. I also want to say you that, unfortunately, she had incommunicado status, and this is important to mention, because what does mean incommunicado status? Incommunicado status for the person means that she has no lawyer, she has no chance to write a letter to her relatives. There are no official accusations against her and official investigation. And I also want to mention that there are more than 10,000 people now with incommunicado status in newly occupied territories of Ukraine. So this is not only about Vika, this is about thousands of Ukrainians who have this status. And relatives, actually, they don't know what happened with them. Also, I want to say something important about the truth and the price of the truth. Because Vika is not the only one journalist who was captured by Russians. We have 28 Ukrainian journalists in Russian prisons for now. Among them, for example, my colleague Dmitro Khaluk, who was captured by Russians 3 years ago in Kyiv region. And the family of his family still don't have an idea what happened with him and where he is. Among them, my courageous colleague from Crimea, Irina Danilovich. Among them, Anastasia Glukhovskaya, who actually was in the same prison with Vika in Taganrog. And we're sure that she also faced with all these tortures and violation of human rights that Vika faced. And I ask you, please don't forget about them. Please give them a voice as Vika did. Because for Vika, it was very important to give a voice of people in occupied territories. And now we have to provide a voice for Ukrainian journalists and do everything possible that all Ukrainian prisoners of war will be back to their families soon. Thank you so much. Slava Ukraini.
Sevhil Musajeva, ukrajinská novinářka, šéf-redaktorka.
Musajeva, Ukrainian journalist and activist, chief editor of the Ukrainian Pravda magazine. Extremely important words and testimony in a world where the power is taken over by people who doubt, who had started the war in Ukraine. We also bring the week's last news documenting her last trip to the occupied territory, and the film is actually showing the crimes against the young woman who traveled to occupied territory professionally and never returned. Maxim Budkevich will be present, and the last screening will be held at 6 in Svietozor cinema on Saturday, 15th of March. It's free of charge. So today we'll welcome one of the presidential figure, our Czech Republic President.
Vážené dámy, vážení pánové,
ladies and gentlemen,
dovolte mi přivítat vás, alespoň takto na dálku, na letošním ročníku festivalu Jeden svět. Festivalu, kterému se během let podařilo přitáhnout prostřednictvím umění a emocí pozornost k složitému a často opomíjenému tématu lidských práv. Jeden svět kultivuje, vzdělává a posiluje občanskou společnost, kterou v současné době potřebujeme jako sůl. Jsem hrdý na to, že se největší festival tohoto druhu na světě každoročně koná právě u nás. Dovolte mi pogratulovat a vyjádřit velký obdiv laureátům letošního ročníku. A také poděkovat pořadatelům za vytrvalé úsilí, s jakým každý ročník připravují. Všem divákům pak přeji inspirativní zážitky, díky kterým ten náš jeden společný svět poznáme ještě lépe a budeme mu více rozumět.
One World Festival, understanding it better. Thank you very much.
No a to, že tomu světu rozumíme díky snímku.
We understand our today's world thanks to One World. It's also the merit of Ondřej Kamenický, the director of One World Festival. So please join me on the stage. Ondřej, I always ask you, please stand in the light. You are always a little bit away, but I would like to ask you what will be this year 27th annual of One World Festival. Please tell us what will be different compared to previous years. Why is it so special? We will be naughty again. Yeah, I think it's necessary to do so. one world is trying to create a safe space every year for everybody, all people who are interested in this situation, both in the Czech Republic and globally, and are people that wish to talk about those topics somewhere else than on social media, which we all know are full of toxic information and manipulations. That's why also thanks to 57 cities organizing this year festival, thanks to hundreds and hundreds of screening discussions of both public ones and discussions organized in schools, we may manage to become a giant public forum where every opinion matters, is unique and is definitely important no matter where it originated from. We are here for everybody who did not give up and will not give up by homophobic, ultra-conservative rhetorics lacking tolerance that is just rolling over us in the last years. And we are definitely here for everybody who find homes and believe that something so simple as human discussion and empathy and hope in better futures still makes sense. That find people that find sanctuary here. Thanks to the selection of movies this year, we tried to reflect honestly the picture of today's world. It was not an easy task. And I would say that today's world is really not that joyful place to watch. And every movie you find, documentary, fiction, or immersive one, might represent certain anchor and certain point that should help our audience to understand better today's world. This is proven by this year. Anas Zahari, My Memory is Full of Ghosts movie. It's a movie that shows human resilience. It's about courage. It's a testimony that shows nothing takes forever. Thanks God. Also conflicts and wars don't take forever. And hope still lies. Syria is a place where in the last 14 years the bloodshed was happening always constantly. It seems that the world forgot about Syria, and a lot of human rights advocates there, and they just left their footprint in our festival. They were awarded not only in our festival, but they got awards also in other important film festivals. And we would like to pay tribute to all courageous people, thanks to this film also, that fighted for better Syria, better future for Syria. And thank you very much for being with us. Thank you for believing that it makes us sense to fight for human rights. Thank you very much.
So I think Andrzej has concluded this night. We would like to thank the Ministry of Culture of the Czech Republic, the Foundation Van Abacus, the Municipality of Prague, and Creative Europe Media, also our general media partner, Czech Television and the Czech Radio. For myself, I would like to thank the team of volunteers. They are great. They do a lot of work for little money, logically, because this is still a non-profit sector, which is really quite tested today. It's also, of course, affected by the situation in the U.S., as you know it. Some people may not know it. So you are really great, and it's wonderful that you work at the festival. I'd like to thank the interpreters to the sign language who are here tonight. Hello, goodbye to those who are watching the stream, but go and see the films, not just in Prague, but in other cities and towns. And Andrzej has not mentioned that this film, you can listen to the checker. If you don't have headsets, you can pick them up, and there'll be English subtitles and also descriptive titles, and then there'll be refreshments after the film, which will be more cheerful, perhaps, although the human rights situation is not so cheerful. I hope you are not depressed, but so a very nice evening to you, and go and see the films.
Jeden svět. Mezinárodní filmový festival o lidských právech 2025. 12. března až 27. dubna po celém Česku. www.jedensvět.cz. Pořádá Člověk v tísni.